Welcome to If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo, live on a Wednesday morning. Don, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a little weird because I watched your What Happens on Saturday with Marlon Kerner, which is a great show. I watched that this morning. I know it got released yesterday.
Thanks for the shameless plug.
And no, it's really good, but it's funny because I just watched it before you came, and
Okay.
you're on the screen, and then you're right
And
here.
now
I
I'm
can
right
attest
here.
that you are live right there.
We are live.
Yep.
We are live.
I'm not going to touch you or anything.
Right,
I'm not
right.
gonna poke you or no. You're
There
there.
you go. Obviously, a better week in Bills country. So we figured we'd just kind of take a walk down memory lane on a Wednesday morning here and go through the 20 most interesting defensive linemen of the past 40 years of Bills football. That's kind of the time frame for people who've never seen us or don't quite remember. You were interned there in 1988.
Yes.
You became a full-time employee a year later.
2 years.
2 years later,
Yeah.
and then you worked your way up the depth chart and became the director of football administration in 2005.
That is correct. And,
Okay.
anyone watching that's married will understand what I'm about to do. This is live. I'm going to respond to this text from my wife. She's a teacher that's getting a call from a contractor. I'm going to tell her that I will call that guy back after this very important
episode.
show.
Right. All right. Well,
yeah,
I'm
can
going
you carry the load for
Sure.
5 seconds? I'll try to talk.
Of course I can.
We'll
So-
call him.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to talk through the text. That's good.
Okay.
So we decided to do this. We've done a number of others. If you haven't checked them out in our archives, the best GMs, all the GMs, all the coaching staffs, the best the quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers.
Mhm.
We've done quite a few of these, and we're going to focus on the defense during a couple of the slow weeks during the season. And this is kind of a perfect jumping off point because there are a lot of interesting characters on the D line. Some
got to be a little crazy to play that position. Don't
agreed.
you?
Hall of Famers, some busts, some mega busts that we will definitely talk about. So we're going to do an honorable mention here, and I've got 2 names for you. We're going to do this kind of by career games played for the Bills.
Okay.
And 2 honorable mentions. Both of them would be in more of the Hall of Shame than the Hall of Fame. We're going to start with Aaron Mabin.
Oh, yeah. Penn
Okay.
State.
9th overall pick. Is that correct? 8th, 9th?
Sounds right. First round, early first round, right there. He had like one breakout season at Penn State, which was obviously enough that our staff thought he had blossomed. I remember seeing him for the first time in the building, and I'm not a personnel guy per se, although I've watched as much football as I've watched in person, live practices, all of it. But he didn't pass the eye test for me in terms of his weight.
Okay.
He
Thin?
Real thin. And the strength and conditioning guys are amazing, whether going back to Rusty Jones or now with Eric Ciano, what they're able to do, especially with a guy from year 1 to year 2. But when you draft a guy there, you need him to contribute in year 1.
Right.
And I just remember like seeing him in the first road game. Everyone had to wear a suit, and it like hung on him. And I'm like,
did he look like a linebacker, safety?
He looked like a tennis player.
Oh, well, okay. All right.
That's maybe unfair.
No.
Because he was probably 6'3", 240 or something. I don't know. You can look it up.
Sure.
But I just remember thinking, every smash mouth plays, every play. Yes, if you're coming off the edge, you got to be athletic, and maybe
no. But there's a look.
Maybe
there's
that might be Von Miller's height and weight. I don't know, but Von's just what I mean. But Aaron Mabin just looked too thin to me, and I thought, okay, guys, you got yourself a project. And
now I remember they did a feature on him with his art. I don't know if you remember. He became like a successful artist. Was his personality? Did it match kind of the?
He was uptight.
Okay.
I thought he was really uptight. Like he didn't speak like he knew there was a lot of pressure on him, and then he ultimately didn't make it. But then what was tough is he goes to the Jets with Rex Ryan. I'm pretty sure was the coach, and he has like 6 or 7 sacks that year, and I think 2 of them came against us. And like, oh, okay, he made a reclamation project out of him, but I don't think he was in the league much more.
No.
Yeah.
Was it well known around the building real quick that he was a bust?
No, I wouldn't say so. I in year 1 you always get kind of a pass, but when it didn't happen in year 2, we're like, yeah.
Okay, so you let him go. He goes to the Jets. His career doesn't pan out from there, and I mean, it's just
he got a little redemption,
sunk cost at that point.
He was maybe at best like an average starter for a year.
Okay.
You know?
The other honorable mention guy here is Eric Flowers, a late first round pick in 2000. I
Yes.
had the
okay.
pleasure of picking up Eric from the airport for rookie minicamp.
Did you?
And I got to tell you, I was concerned at the very beginning because we had to stop at the Galleria Mall. This is a true story. And we had to buy a PlayStation.
Really?
He wanted a PlayStation for minicamp. So we stopped at the Galleria Mall. I never told you
That's
that.
a red flag.
That's
right
a red
there.
flag. He wanted a PlayStation. He was a gamer. He wanted to play Madden. But we stopped at the Galleria Mall and at GameStop, whatever, Best Buy. I don't remember the store. But we stopped at the Galleria Mall from the airport, and he bought a PlayStation and brought it, because they were staying. Where were they staying? At the Millennium?
Yeah.
Then and
probably
and he had that was the first thing he did in Buffalo.
not wanting to rush to
No,
One
no.
Bill's Drive to meet
No.
his coaches.
He was goofy. He was very friendly. He was a nice kid. Like he was definitely a nice kid. Nothing, but his priorities were, and it was weird. It's not like he wants to come here and party, and he wasn't asking where the strip clubs were. He wanted a PlayStation.
That's so funny because if you didn't have cell phones back then, but if you did, and your coaches were like, "Hey, Josh just went to pick up Eric Flowers," and they're like, "Looking at the watch, he should be here by now."
Yep, he
And
went
if you
before
picture
his
that
first.
call-
This is rookie minicamp. This is your first weekend in Buffalo. You're a new team. You just got drafted.
I'm just imagine you get that phone call. Hey, Josh, you picked everything. Yeah, he's here.
Yeah, we're at the mall.
Yeah, we're at the mall.
Yeah, we're hanging out. It was odd. It was really odd, and I just think he just wasn't serious. He wasn't serious. He was friendly. He was athletic. Like when you saw him on the field, he looked the part, but he just everything was kind of a joke. Everything was kind of a ha ha ha, and from what I remember, he didn't fit well with that room with like a bunch of professional guys like Phil Hansen and Ted Washington and Pat Williams and Marcellus Wiley. I mean, you had like serious NFL professional football players, and then this kid comes in and he wasn't well liked either. Everybody kind of thought he was, just kind of a jokester.
It's interesting. Like, had his career gone well, you'd look back in that and see, like, oh, that was the way he relieved stress. That was oh, okay,
yeah.
But now it looks real bad,
right? And it looked bad at the time.
Yeah,
it was just odd.
Yeah.
It was really odd because it made no sense to do that. Your first day in your new city. The first thing you got to go get is a PlayStation.
You need to go point A to point B.
Right.
You gotta get in that building and get it that night.
So
right.
we're gonna start the list here. This is not by most interesting. It's by games played for the Bills.
Right.
We took a little bit of a liberty here, and we included like rush ends. Guys now that would be considered defensive linemen, like when we talked with IK, and he was a linebacker / defensive end.
Sure.
So we took a little bit of liberty here at the list. And the first guy on the list is actually one of the most successful free agent pickups in Bills history, Bryce Paup.
Oh, man.
He only played 43 games for the Bills, but man, like what an impact and like what a player.
Maybe this is a show for another time in February when free agency comes. Make a note of this about the best and the worst free agent signings in team history.
Sure.
He makes a case for the best.
Yeah, he was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in '95.
Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, you talk about a compliment to Bruce Smith. I mean, you already had Phil Hansen there too, but you make a good point about. I think he was listed as a linebacker, but I mean, where he lined up.
Yeah, he played Wade's 3-4, and he was rushing the quarterback. Almost exclusively. He was a rush end.
Leave it to Wade to figure out a way to get the most out of him.
Do you remember anything about him in the building?
I remember he was very quiet. He was from Iowa, the Midwest, and just real super respectful to everyone. I don't think he was very comfortable at all with his stardom. I remember before we got him, he was at Green Bay, and he was having a really good year at Green Bay. And Chris Berman just loved to say his name, was like Bryce Paup. Like and like and then the next year he's here, and
did he get like the big free agent treatment coming here, like to recruit him, to woo him here? Do you remember?
He was a first day guy, but I don't think like private plane guy.
No,
yeah, but
because he was a good player coming here, but he was not what he became here.
Holy cow! But I remember he had a play against the Cowboys where I think Emmitt Smith was. in pass
Yeah,
protection, and he leaped over
Yeah.
him and sacked Aikman.
he was the kind of player that you hadn't seen
Oh yeah,
before. Like
yeah.
he was. I remember he was really like kind of not stiff, but he was just like
Kind of was though.
stiff.
Yeah,
And even like the buzz cut, the hair, like
Right.
everything kind of played
Yeah,
into that kind of.
yeah. My nephew was 6 or 7 years old, I think, and he was just becoming a Bills fan. He lived in the Adirondacks, and that's the first jersey he ever wanted. Bryce Prop. We got him a Bryce Prop jersey. It's funny. We just talked to him. Somebody in my family talked to him, or that came up somehow about. We found the jersey and at my parents' house. We're like, oh yeah, this was Torrey's first jersey.
That's funny.
Yeah.
He made for only playing 43 games for the Bills. Like he's a guy who everybody who knew like the Bills in the 90s was one of their favorite players, and just makes quite an impact, even if you talk about him 25, 30 years later.
Exactly. What was his last year? Does it say?
No, 97.
97. Okay. I remember he had a groin injury that cut his career short.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah,
because he was I mean, he was all pro.
Yes.
He was crazy. All right, the next guy on the list, another one with clearly one famous play that we've already talked about on this podcast, but a guy who made an oversized impact. Another day one free agent, Sam Adams, 45 games played.
Yeah, darn it. I've had a lot of give and take here with Sam Adams. We literally sat at this table a while back, and he had to cancel on us. We're going to get him on, but you know what? He was John Guy, former director of player development, had a funny story about him that I think we brought on. Was either Lawyer Malloy or another big free agent, and he got a big contract, and Sam was there, and he's like pounds his fist on the table. It was time for Big Sam to get paid now.
Yeah,
but yeah, I remember he was.
Was he as big of a personality as he was like as a human being?
Not really. No, he kind of picked and chose his spots, but man, what an impact he made there in the middle. A lot of guys that we've brought on that played on that defense. It's like one of the first names that comes up that they looked around the field at practice, were like, I can't believe I'm playing with Big Sam Adams.
It's really interesting. I saw a tweet yesterday from Aaron Schatz.
Okay,
used to be Football Outsiders. He does his DVOA, which is a real analytical look at defensive value above average, and basically a really good statistical way to rank players' defenses. That 04 Bills defense was ranked as the 8th best defense in NFL history.
Come on, really? Wow.
By DVOA. Here you go. I saw it and I was going to tweet it to you. I was going to send it to you, but then I figured I'd just give it to you live here.
Frustrating.
They were you're on there with, I think the 85 Bears. It was by DVOA. It's the 8th ranked defense in NFL history.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on.
That's frustrating.
We'll move on. Another guy on the list here. I got to tell you, I don't remember much about his time here. Hopefully you can help fill in the blanks. Played 46 games for the Bills. Marcus Stroud.
Marcus Stroud was a big time free agent pickup from. He had been with Jacksonville. I think he and John Henderson were like the Twin Towers, two beasts of interior linemen, and we just kept hearing how big and bad those guys were. And hey, we got one of those guys. And
now, was he a private plane guy?
He might have been. Yeah,
okay.
He's one John Guy guy, and he liked to do that when he could. His budgets were a nightmare. They were non-existent. But he came in. I'm going to write his name down because I think I still have contact with him. He was just a big old teddy bear.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a lisp, he just funny. Like he was not anything like.
It's interesting how the biggest guys on the team sometimes are not the scariest,
right?
And we're going to get to a couple of the other guys on this list who I know personally, and their personalities seem to fit the same as like Sam Adams and what you say about Marcus Stroud. They're almost like gentle giants in a way when you're that big.
Yep. Yeah. Stroud was 6'7", maybe 310 something, and he could move. He was I forget the year he came in, but nice. He was a nice pickup.
But then another not really a difference maker.
I mean, he might have been. We might have had one of the best D-lines in the year, but we were deficient in every other way where it gets lost, like you just said. But
And this is an exercise in frustration for you. This
It
entire
is.
podcast.
I know it's fun. It's fun. But it does bring back memories. Things like, how could we have not won more games? But he, he might have made the Pro Bowl. I don't know how many sacks he had before you did this. You were going by sacks. It'd be interesting to see, but. Interior lineman obviously isn't always measured by sacks. It's more about disruption and
Right.
you play the run and you make plays for other guys when you tie up, the center and everything. But
all right,
good player.
Next on the list, 63. We've talked about him a couple times on this show. 63 games played. Mario Williams.
Yeah.
So for the people who haven't heard our show or are new to it, can you take me through the free agent pursuit of Mario Williams, who I would argue is probably the most high-profile free agent the Bills ever brought in?
I would agree. Yeah, I can't think of one bigger in terms of the effort made to bring him in. I remember about a month before I was having a conversation in Jim Overdorf's office, and we were talking about, I forget what it was, something business related. And he goes, "How do you think we should handle that? And what would your role be if we were to bring in a guy, for instance, like Mario Williams?" And he had this funny look on his face because Buddy Nix was the new general manager, and we had a really bad pass rush the year before, and he looked at me with a funny look, and I said, "I'm gathering this feels like more than just a hypothetical." And he's like, "Oh, maybe he is playing games with me," and I'm like, "Wow!" He goes, doesn't leave the room, but holy cow! Okay, we're gonna make a play for Mario Williams. And
how does that come about? Like, so was it a meeting with internally saying, "Hey," it's for the first call to Mr. Wilson, right? "Hey, you willing to write a check?"
Well, the first call, but the obviously they knew a guy like that was going to be one of the highest, or if not the highest paid defensive player in the league, which he was. I think it was $100 million contract, but it was over a few years. A lot of it was incentive based, but it was the incentives that he had achieved in Houston, so they were likely to be earned. And it was essentially Buddy coming to Jim, who was handling the salary cap. How much room do we have? And it was basically just saying, it's almost like when Mike Ditka at New Orleans traded his entire draft for Ricky Williams.
Yeah.
It was putting all the eggs in the Mario Williams basket, meaning Jim told him, like, "Look, we can do this, but we can't do anything else."
Now, did they have to go to Mr. Wilson?
Oh yeah,
because I mean that's a big check.
Oh, it's definitely
and out of character for what the team had done in the past.
Exactly. That's I couldn't believe it. I was excited, and it was a fun week having him there. It was, people can remember it was in March, of course. He was a private jet guy. They had a few top VPs go down and to meet with him, bring him back, woo him, take him out to dinner with Kyle Williams. He brought his fiance at the time here.
It was like 80 degrees.
It was the weather was spectacular, not just for like one off day. It was for like 10 days. It was 80 degrees.
I remember.
And we're like, please, no one tell him that it's not usually like this in March. And it was a successful signing.
Did he sign before he left? Or did he leave and then sign?
Well, you're only allowed to be there as a free agent. It's I don't know if it's just 24 hours. It's no more than 48 hours.
Okay.
But you're allowed to be you could be in the town, but you can't be within like a few miles of the facility or something like that. So he kind of made it clear that I'm impressed. I obviously the price is right. You're in the lead, but my fiance needs to like it here. She's from Houston. There's a lot to do in Houston. So the team assigned Gretchen Getter to basically take her around to all the best places.
Where'd they go? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Did they take her to like East Aurora?
Yeah, I think they took her to East Aurora.
Okay.
I'd have to ask her. I actually shot her an email yesterday for something totally unrelated.
So basically you had to impress the girl, the fiance.
He made that clear.
Okay.
He goes, it matters what she thinks about it because she's going to live with me.
So East Aurora and maybe some places in Orchard Park.
Here's the problem. Like we all know, if it's June or July, there's plenty of options.
It's March.
But March, That's tough.
Wow.
You
Well,
know?
clearly
Yeah.
it worked.
It worked.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, the
clearly,
money, you've asked me before in this program, are the guys that they kind of felt like you had to pay a premium for, play more. Yeah, he's a clear example. And, he had himself a Pro Bowl few years.
did he say his agents, did they come right out and say, hey, if I'm going to sign here, it's going to cost you more?
Um, in essence, yeah, he made it clear he wanted to be the first $100 million player, and that he wanted to be the highest defensive player in NFL history. He achieved both of those. At the time, I was still doing the contracts in terms of Jim was doing the negotiations, but they would give me the contract to put electronically to send to the league in their required formats, and it was a nightmare. There were like 40 different clauses.
How long do you think that contract took you personally to put together?
It took me. I had to shelve everything else.
Sure. For a day, 2 days?
A couple days.
So it's probably about 15, 20 hours worth of work for just you
Sure.
personally on that contract?
Yeah. And for Jim, it was probably a week's worth of work.
Now, when Jim is negotiating with an agent on this contract,
Yeah.
just so I know you might not have been in the room with him, but you're in contact with him all the time.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Are they talking on the phone every hour, every 2 hours, every 5 minutes? Like, is it just call back and forth?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yep. It's a lot of emails, which they have to be careful about, but it's a lot of phone calls. It's continuous. In the meantime, we have to operate on the presumption that it's gonna happen. We're going to do this contract, even if you put all this work into it, and he ultimately signs with another team, and it's all in vain. You still have to assume that it's going to go to the league. So you keep working at it, and because when he does agree verbally to sign, hopefully he's still in town. But if he's not, you have to FedEx the contract. Like if he was back in Houston, you'd have to FedEx it to get it there in the morning with a return envelope where he would send it back. But you wanted to get that signature on paper before anything could go wrong, before any crazy uncle that he has tells him, "Are you crazy? Don't you know it snows up there?"
Right.
You just want it.
But it had to be a physical signature.
You
can't do like an AccuSign.
There were like 7 physical signatures.
Wow.
Actually more, like 7 on the contract, and then like 6 or 7 copies. One went to the union, one went to his agent, one went to him, one went to the league office.
Did you feel more pressure?
Oh yeah,
doing his contract than generic 6th round pick?
The ones believe it or not, some of the draft picks were more pressure because Jim or someone would tell the position coach if it was the eve of training camp, hey, good news, your guy's going to be there on the first day of camp. And then if it had to be done by 4 o'clock or 3:59, and you get the contract at like 2:30.
Okay.
And he can't practice until it's like if you miss that deadline.
Is it phone off, door shut?
Door shut. I had to be just flat out rude to people. Like, sorry,
you got to get this done.
Yeah.
So Mario's obviously in March, so there's not as much time pressure, but it's still the pressure of, oh my gosh, this is the largest contract.
Yeah.
Defensive contract in NFL history
until it's on paper, right?
Wow. Did you get a pat on the back when it was all done?
I think I got a couple attaboys, but there was a lot of relief.
Now, did he come into your office once he got here for direct deposit and all that the first time?
Yeah. He
did he have any reaction to like his first paycheck as the highest paid defensive player in the league?
The funniest thing is I think in some celebratory way, some guys from like our sponsorship team or marketing department had a couple beers with him at a local establishment.
Okay.
And he brought it up. He's like, hey, how do I get paid? Because he got a massive signing bonus. It was like 20 million or something crazy over installments and 3 or 4 installments. But he had to have the first within 5 days. And so I had to get it to him. And I remember one of the next days, Chris Costanza, we had this conversation a few months ago, and he was like, oh yeah, I remember I went out with Mario for a few beers and I had to give him your number to tell him how to get paid. And then I remember he called me, and
wow, that's hilarious. Yeah. So he walked in and you handed him a physical check for like 1/4 of a $20 million signing bonus?
Yeah, I think the first one we had to send, but then like installment number 2 out of 4. He would have been there for the off-season workouts and
What a
OTAs.
nice day.
So we physically.
Did you ever like? I mean, is it awkward? Is it weird? Hey, here, buddy. Here's a check for $4 million.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, you just because you can't even. It's hard to fathom being on the receiving end of that, and sometimes just how nonchalant they were. Now they know it's coming.
Sure, it's not a surprise.
Yeah,
but it's still. I guess if it's me, I might feel awkward walking into a room with someone like you who's clearly, making a nice living, but $4 million is not it.
Yeah,
and just taking that check, like what a weird dynamic that is between you and a player like that to be getting a check.
It's funny too. You just reminded me of something too when a lot of guys had off-season workout bonuses, and they ranged from 25,000 to, like in Mario's case, it was 500,000 for to complete the whole program. You get maybe one day off every couple weeks, but when those checks were done, they were always physical checks. They weren't direct deposit. I would take them down to Eric Ciano, who was still the Bills strength coach today. And he was like, give me those checks. He goes, I'm going to leverage these, which you're not allowed to do. But if there was any kind of unfinished business that he wanted to make sure a player did, he would hold those checks literally over their heads as they're on the bench. He's like,
probably not part of the CBA, probably not CBA.
Yeah, right? I think the statute of limitations, from my experience, has come into play.
That's funny. Anyway, so we'll move on. This next player, I was there when he was there. 64 games played. Marcellus Wiley has made a nice post NFL career for himself as a media member. I found him really pleasant, clearly very smart, went to Columbia. Right. Everybody talks about that. Like a really good player. I kind of felt bad for him because he was drafted as kind of the heir apparent to Bruce Smith.
What was he, a first round pick?
He was a late first round pick.
Yeah,
but it felt like he wasn't set up to fail. But he was in a really tough spot because Bruce was winding down his career, and then when Bruce got let go in the beginning of 2000, Marcellus is your new starting D end, and you're just never going to fill those shoes. You're not going to fill the shoes of Bruce Smith, who had been here for 15 years and 4 Super Bowls and one of the 3 or 4 greatest defensive players of all time. I just felt like it was a really tough spot for him.
Sure. I mean, no one's expecting that you can somehow sustain Bruce's level of productivity, but you have to kind of at least be
he just wasn't
Pro Bowl caliber.
But he also wasn't asked to do the same things Bruce was. He wasn't like a pure rush end.
Right.
He played the 3-4 in Wade's system, so he was more supposed to be stout against the run and all that. But it just felt like he was in an impossible position. It would be like it was like Todd Collins trying to replace Jim Kelly.
Yeah. But I will say this.
He clearly had a better career than Todd Collins.
Yeah, Todd Collins and Aaron Maben I would put in the same category as guys that looked like they felt the pressure. They were uptight. Sure. You were around Marcellus.
No, Marcellus did not. Marcellus was great.
He was I don't want to call him a goofball. I don't mean that. but he was like a jolly, happy, and you don't know. And it's funny because you talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick, guys that come from the Ivy League, you expect that maybe they're just going to kind of walk around.
Yeah, no, he did not. No, he did not give off the air of going to Columbia. No, he was just one of those guys who you knew he would be when he was in the room. You knew he was in the room, and you enjoyed just being around him. He was fun. Everybody seemed to like him. Like I said, I just felt like he was just put in a tough spot.
Yeah, and
he went on to San Diego. I know he did well there. His post career has been great.
Yeah, great announcer.
So, but he, commentator. Just on a loaded defensive line. Those late 90s, if you think about it, those late 90s defensive lines that we had were really good. Really, there's a couple more guys coming up. The next guy, I took a little bit of liberty here. 64 games, linebacker / D end, apparent, I guess. Fan favorite. I know you think quite a bit about him. Lorenzo Alexander.
Yeah. I was with him for 1 year because there was like no fanfare about him. I think he played in the league 10 years and he was like a special teams standout. Trying to think of Washington and, he's listed as like a D end, but if nothing else, the team thought, okay, we're going to get our special teams ace captain. He'll be on every unit. He'll be a leader. And, he'll be kind of not Steve Tasker, very different kind of guys, but he'll be a special, like a Pro Bowl special teamer. He'll continue to be that. No one, if they say they thought he was going to be that good of a linebacker, D end hybrid, whatever. If they say they knew it, they're lying. Like
Right. Yeah.
he was. Where did this come from? And maybe Steve Tasker in one way is a good comparison, because a lot of guys we've talked to from those 90 teams always said that Jim Kelly said in practice no one could cover Steve Tasker as a receiver. And then when he did get a chance to play receiver in the mid 90s, 95 and 94, like, oh my gosh, where's all this been? Well, he was so good at special teams, they didn't want to risk him. Well, I think it's the similar thing here. When he finally got a chance to play linebacker, like his numbers he made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, no, he was fantastic.
Real nice, real professional guy too. He's done a lot in his post career. I think he was the team union rep. Real smart guy, knows the business of the game.
Okay, next guy on the list, 77 career games played. I feel like his nickname is what he's best known for. I can't think of a big play he made, even though he played in so many big games. The Doctor of Sack, Leon Seals. I feel like that's one of the most I don't know, how do I say this? I don't feel like the nickname lived up to the productivity. Can you think of one big play Leon Seals ever made?
Nope.
He called the Doctor of Sack.
Was it the Doctor? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Doctor of
Sack. Yeah. He was.
Can you think of one big play he ever made?
When you see highlights of Super Bowl 25, they're painful. But for some reason, NFL Films always shows like how they're showing how physical the game was. They always show it's not a sack.
Okay, yeah.
But it's Hostetler, just as he releases the ball, Leon Seals just takes him and drives him into the ground. It might be a penalty today.
Sure, I've seen that play.
But still, he got the ball off.
Right.
So no.
Do you have any memories of him around the building?
He was a fun kind of guy. It surprised me a little. I think he's a police officer today in like Louisiana. I saw him online once. But he was certainly the forgotten guy on those teams. He was a starter, like you said. He played all those games.
Yeah, I mean, think about his career. Like, I mean, he played in multiple Super Bowls.
Yeah,
and he's on a lot. He's on a defensive line with Bruce Smith and Jeff Wright. And then with Phil Hansen,
right?
The Doctor of Sack. I was going through this list and I thought to myself, I can't think of one play.
It clearly was a nickname he earned in college, and
somewhere else.
Yeah, and I don't know how many career sacks he had. If let's say he had 20, I don't know,
just
20,
not
25.
Not one memorable moment to me as a Bills fan growing up. He was like this kind of popular guy on the team for, just because of his nickname. I felt like otherwise it would have been like, oh god, it's Leon Seals. Like, oh, this guy, he doesn't make an impact, doesn't make a play. Yeah, it's just weird. So strange. I'm going through this list. I laughed because I'm like, man, I can't think.
They got to be doing something right though. If they're there, because in practice they wouldn't be out on the field.
Right?
They wouldn't be out there if they
clearly he was
productive.
He was serving his role.
Yeah,
he played his assignments well, but just funny that all those games, all those memories, all those teams, you just don't remember really anything about it.
I don't.
Yeah,
except for that highlight, Super Bowl 25.
Sure. This next guy, I know you will remember and maybe have a couple opinions on. Maybe an eye roll. 91 career games played for the Bills. Marcel Darius. There it is. There's the lip smack and the
Listen, he was a very good player. I mean, he was selected 3rd overall in the draft. He too was on a really, really good defensive line with 1 year. He was one of 4 guys on the team with more than 10 sacks. But you just felt like he still underachieved. And one of the most frustrating things about him is he was late. He was late for everything. Like, not everything, that's an exaggeration. Sure. But I remember we were in London, and in the hotel there was a team meeting, and he had decided that he was going to go. We were 45 minutes away from the city, but he was going to go into the city and do some shopping at wherever. And we were in the lobby as the team was having their team meeting, and he walks. We're 10 minutes into the meeting, and he just walks into the lobby, and we're like, "Oh no!"
How much does that cost them?
Oh,
10, 15 grand.
See it probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a guy like him, he comes in 3rd overall pick. It's famously the draft. Cam Newton number 1, Von Miller number 2,
Yeah.
Marcel Darius number 3. How quickly do you know?
Think about that. Von's still playing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy doesn't get it, because I wouldn't call him a bust.
No.
He had a long NFL career.
Yeah.
So bust is wrong, but clearly he didn't live up to the 3rd pick in the draft. If he was drafted in the 2nd round, it'd have been a fine NFL career.
There you go. That's a great way to frame it. And we were in Miami. I think it was Miami, and we were on the bus, and I always sat. The head coach sat in the first row, and then the GM would sit in the first row on the other side. I always sat behind the GM. I had to be the first one off the bus because I had to sprint ahead and be there and make sure we had everyone accounted for on the plane.
Yep.
Marty McLaughlin would do that with me from security. So I'm sitting there in the second row, and we win the game in Miami. It was a good game. I think Darius had a good game, and he gets on the bus, and he sits right there where Doug Marrone usually sits. And Doug Marrone gets on and sees him there, and he's like, the language was, are you just, yeah. And Darius was like, okay, like he somehow thought it was okay. I don't know. I couldn't tell if it was a joke or if he just thought for some reason it would be okay to sit there. Like when you say if it's the latter, it just wasn't getting it. Like
just some guys just don't get it.
Yeah,
and some guys just don't get it.
Yeah, and on the road, if we were going to close the doors at 1:30 to get on the plane, and it was like 1:20, and we were missing 4 or 5 guys. Like, who are the guys? And call without fail.
It was him.
He was always one of them.
And you don't know why. You don't like that in and of itself doesn't make you a bad football player, a bad person, but it can lead to other things, right? Like bad practice habits, maybe bad nutrition. Well, like maybe if you don't take getting there on time seriously,
right?
There's probably other things on the periphery of being on the field that you don't take seriously as well.
There's a carryover for sure. Yeah. And a lot of times it was 128, 129, but it was.
Did the other guys get frustrated with him?
Probably. I didn't hear whispers about what was happening in the locker room or in the meeting rooms, but they had to be.
Because
like Kyle Williams, yeah.
Talking to a bunch of these guys, doing my show now with Marlon. Marlon is a very prepared, serious, takes his craft. He takes podcasting seriously, let alone his NFL career. Trained all the time. Was like a world-class athlete. That's got to be maddening. If your teammate, if your buddy is like, come in 5 minutes late. If it happens once in a while, fine, whatever. But that's got to be maddening as a teammate.
Sure,
just to see a guy who's consistently either flaunting the rules or just
pushing the envelope to it's like, are you all in or not? Because
I am.
We are. Yeah.
That would drive me crazy, because those are things that are avoidable. Yeah. That's nothing that can't be corrected or that should just never happen.
Behavioral.
Was Doug Marrone, was he one of those like 130 really means 120 in the meeting room?
At first he well, he was hard guy. He coming from Syracuse, he brought his cow. That didn't really play well with a lot of the guys. It's funny you say that. Like, does 130 really mean 120? Yeah, he was.
Okay, was Greg Williams as well?
Yep.
Okay, because those two, when I think about just like being in the building with them, it would just elicit eye rolls. It's like, oh god.
Yeah, I had a great relationship with Greg Williams, not with Doug Marrone.
Right. No,
but they were the same as the way they handled the team was similar, right?
Just these guys should be professionals, and you'd like to think that they treat them like men and not like college kids.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing about Greg Williams with like the bullhorn And training, it's like, oh God, like,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God, like, come on, really? I mean, are we really going? But
Yeah. Rex
know,
was the opposite. Rex.
sure, Wade was the opposite.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's funny how it goes kind of yin and yang. You
Yeah.
went from Doug to Rex, you
Yep.
know, and Chan to Doug. Like it's almost like this pendulum that the Bills went on
Oh,
for 30
you
years
get
of
dizzy. Yeah. Meanwhile, New England's got the same guy, and
yeah.
some teams have the same guy for, the Mike Tomlins or the Steelers. Like, oh,
Funny.
please get off this merry-go-round and have
Right.
it. Well, the team has it now, thankfully. The Bills have that at one Bills drive now. So
All right, we're gonna keep this rolling. 96 career games played. One of my favorite players as a player and personally, Ted Washington.
go ahead.
Ted Washington.
Go ahead. Yeah.
This is my story about
Yeah.
Ted Washington. Two things. First of all, my friends will make fun. I'll make fun of me because I have a large head. Okay, I have almost a fitted cap size 8.
Okay.
And Ted Washington's helmet was the only one in the locker room that would fit. No lie. And my buddies Eric and Pat are going to kill me. Jody might be listening right now and laughing. Just yes. So yes, Ted Washington's helmet was the only helmet on the team that fit me.
At what point? When? How do you? So you
Because
go.
here's the story. No, so Carl Mock got the entire coaching staff, all the assistants, the scouting guys, customized hats. Okay, it was like his gift to the team, and it was kind of weird, but whatever. And you had to give him your hat size, and I'm like, oh, here we go. And I was like 7 7/8.
Okay.
Well, Carl thought that was like the funniest thing of all time. Then he starts asking me, what's my measurements other places, and I'm like, Carl, we're not doing this. We're just not doing this.
For the amount of respect he showed you on your first day, I'm surprised.
So I would have been more happy if he hadn't been talking to me. This was like, this was well into the year, and we had become quote unquote friends by that point. So he's giving me shit because I've got this large head, and he goes, "Come on, kid, let's see whose helmet will fit you in the locker room." And we go down there, and like I'm trying on people's helmet, and he went to Woody and to Hojo, and he told them this. Well, that's all you needed to.
Oh.
You give that to Woody, and it's just red meat.
That's not going to stick, is it?
Right, it's a red meat to a dog. So Ted's helmet was the only one that fit comfortably. The other Ted Washington thing, that man was so large, he would come up from behind me, and he could take his hands. Okay, he took his right hand and the tip of his thumb and the tip of his index finger. His middle finger could fit all the way around my neck.
Oh.
Now I was thinner then.
Yeah.
All the way around my neck. He could come from the back of my neck, and he would put his hand here, and I could feel it. He could have killed me.
Because even at 16, 17 inches, probably.
Yes.
That's crazy.
His hand, from the thumb to the tip of the middle finger, he could touch on my neck.
And you're saying at the time, I didn't touch your helmet, I promise.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I had known him from the merchandise department. His wife had done a bunch of charity work. So, I had gotten to know him even before I got, promoted over the football side of things. He was super. Yeah. He was such a nice guy. His wife is a lovely lady, but he would come around and joke around with me, and he just got the biggest kick out of the fact he goes, I could kill you right now. And he could have just squeezed.
Wow.
And it was unbelievable. He made me feel like a small human being.
Well, the rest of the world was a small human being to him.
Yes.
Even other people, like he was 350.
Yeah. He just it's funny. You're around all those guys. There were other really large humans on that team. Robert Hicks was a large man. Yeah. Jamie Nails was huge. But for some reason, Ted just made you feel small. Not intentionally, but he just made you feel. He made me feel small. He made me feel like a kid. He really did.
He looked it on the field. I mean, the offensive linemen you mentioned are usually around other 300-pounders, but when you're 350 in the middle of the line, your D end or a Bryce Pop could be 260.
Yeah,
like you look. Oh, that's funny.
It was. Yep. So shout out to Carl and to Woody. They did not let me forget that. The next guy on our list, 98 career games played, and the Dan Marino whisperer,
Jeff Wright.
There you go.
Okay.
Funny how like a guy who around the NFL. I mean, people might recognize the name, but around here, if you mention the guy who sacks Dan Marino, everybody remembers it was Jeff Wright.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that Gary Payton in the NBA wanted to be known as like the one guy that could cover Michael Jordan.
Right? Yeah, yes.
But Jordan didn't agree.
Yes. Yeah, you remember in the Last Dance, Jordan goes, "I had no problems with the glove."
Yeah, and I mean maybe. I don't have stats to back it up. Maybe statistically, Jordan was a couple points, but he still got his.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Jeff Wright, was not known as a sack machine at all. But when he did get them, unlike Leon Seals,
he broke the streak. Dan Marino had the consecutive games without getting sacked, and Jeff Wright was the guy who broke that streak. And he consistently made plays against the Dolphins.
Yeah,
and was in Dan Marino's face all the time.
He was. I just wonder what it was. You go back and look at film. Did he have some kind of, was his quickness or size or whatever he did just away? Played the nose tackle. He was an undersized nose tackle. But you're right. He harassed Marino. He sacked him more than
and then
he might have sacked him more than Bruce. I don't know.
And then he was part of one of the greatest plays in Bills history.
Yes,
the Carlton Bailey interception. He tipped the ball from Elway. But I mean, what an interesting career, and like a guy around here who's, I wouldn't call him a local legend, but people know who he is for just being a nose tackle. Whereas in everywhere else in the country, they probably wouldn't remember him at all.
It's a niche. Yeah, you're right. Bills fans know. Marino it was frustrating to watch him play because he was not mobile at all. Yet he had the pocket presence and was just elusive enough, sidestep here, sidestep there, to not get sacked very much. But Jeff Wright was one of the few that got to him.
And the quick release of Dan Marino. If you ever watched the Miami game, that's all you ever heard about.
Yeah.
Next guy on the list, 107 games played for the Bills. Everybody calls him one of the most underrated Bills. I would agree. Pat Williams.
Yeah.
Like he was borderline unblockable.
He was
when I was there. He was so quick off the line, and he played like angry.
Yeah. He was kind of an angry guy in the building too.
Yeah.
He had a chip on his shoulder. He hated that he was an undrafted free agent.
He let everyone know.
He did.
He let me know more than once. I'm like, Pat, I had nothing to do with it. Yeah, sorry. That was way above my pay grade. If you saw my paycheck every week, you would know I had nothing to do with that decision. But no, he reminded everybody
he did
that he was undrafted.
Yeah, I picked and chose when I talked to players about if I said anything to them, I obviously want to compliment. I didn't want to just be, say it and have it be meaningless. But there were games after a player would just have a really good game and you'd see him, you're like, man, you were unstoppable the other day at the cafeteria. And I did that once. I was on an elevator with him and I said something about what a good game he had. And he looked at me, he was like, what, are you surprised about it or something?
Yes.
Like, no, I wasn't surprised.
You couldn't win with him.
Right.
You couldn't, and I mean, he played that way. Kind of like our guest, Mike Lodish, another guy, just angry about where they were picked, and they use it as motivation and use it as fuel. And that's a good thing.
Sure.
But around the building on a Wednesday, like I would give the playbook to Pat because Pat was on field goal block. Well, Pat wanted absolutely nothing to do with field goal block. He said, I don't care about this. Every week. And I'm like, Pat, I've just got to hand this to you. You can take it and wipe your ass with it. I don't care, but I've got to give it to you. And every week, I don't care about this. And I'm like, I understand. I'm not asking you to care. I just need to hand it to you. So, but you know what? On the field, it translated, and the guy had an amazing career.
It would be interesting to talk to someone that worked for the Patriots all those years and to ever hear whether, Brady ever made comments, about being a 6th-round pick.
I'm sure. Well,
I wonder. I've never heard that.
That is interesting. That is interesting.
I've heard he said it fuels him, but I just wonder if in the building, it's I'll probably never know.
The next 3 guys on the list we can kind of lump together because in my mind, not being a Bills fan during the drought era, these guys are kind of all the same to me. And I know that you feel like one of them should be on the Wall of Fame, but Ryan Denny, Chris Kelsay, and Aaron Schopel. They all seemed like the exact same dude to me.
Physically, okay, where to start? I'll leave the one you just talked about for last. Chris Kelsay, guy from Nebraska. Just very respectful. He was a good player. Was he a 2nd-round pick? I don't know. Had a big pick 6 against the Cowboys on Monday night. But kind of like Bryce Pop.
Just real quiet to himself. Okay.
Yeah. Real quiet. The
Ryan Denny
was, I think, from Utah. There was one game against Miami. I remember he had like 3 sacks in the first half, and it was his 2nd year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. We really hit on this guy. And then, I don't recall, him sustaining obviously that kind of level of play. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find ways to separate those two guys, but he kind of fit in the same way as Kelsey did in terms of didn't say a lot. He had a little more of an edge to him than Chris did. I can't remember exactly some conversations I had with him where I thought, ooh, there's a little bit of a fight in this guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Schobel was just a grouch to the point where this can't be real. Like can anyone be this miserable every single day? But I will tell you what, I mean, the guy should be on the Hall of Fame. He's number 2 in sacks.
The Wall of Fame.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Wall of Fame.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe
number 2 all time.
Number 2. We had Phil Hansen on the program, and he was well aware of it. He's like, "Yeah, I was number 2, but I know that Schobel passed me." And
he was miserable in the building every day.
Yeah,
every day.
Yeah. I remember it was a Halloween party. We had a Halloween party there. It was mostly for the families. It was in the field house. It was fun, and I had young kids. His were younger than mine, but I was still. Our kids were still old enough to go. Claire was, and it was fun. They had bouncy houses, they had games, they had food. And I remember the next day, Aaron came in my office to pick up his check, and I'd seen him there the night before. I said, "Hey, have a good time at the Halloween party." He's like, "Nope." Like I waited for a laugh. Like he goes, "No," and I said, "Well, it looks like your kids were having fun." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I guess that's really all that matters." Like whatever. There
you
was.
Thought it was just shtick?
I had some of it had to be, and I think. I realized later when his career was over that some of it was. There was a preseason game, and we were going to play in Indy or something, and I said, you ready for the game? And only one more to go or 2 more. And he's like, "I'm not going to this game." And I said, "You're not going?" He goes, "Nah, man, I hate paying those other state taxes." I'm like, he goes, "Yeah, my hamstring hurts."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not going because of my hamstring." And I'm like, he just said it's because of his taxes. Wow. He wasn't injured at all.
Did he go?
No.
Okay.
But he was good enough that
What
they gave him a pass.
Wow.
But when his career was over, I was playing golf with some friends at Bobolinks Par 3 golf, and he just showed up there. He was coming back for like his first alumni weekend, and I remember, I don't think he knew I was there, but he was in the parking lot, and I was coming off, and he was like, "Hey, how you doing, man?" And a big hug and everything. I'm like,
"Who's this guy?"
Yeah, I couldn't yeah, what?
Wow.
Okay, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, some of that was just a shtick.
Was a shtick in the building. Okay, yeah. I mean, guys got to try to get an edge any way they can, right? And if you're there and you're serious,
if you do, I gotta believe it exists somewhere. And I know you weren't watching the team back then for a good reason, but I would look him up on YouTube and see highlights of the guy. Man, he was a baller.
Sure,
he was a really good player.
He was a difference maker.
Yeah, he was.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, next guy on the list, 144 games, Jerry Hughes.
Yeah, Jerry Hughes. First thing that comes to mind is he gave me a heart attack in London when he lost his passport. I've told the story a few times on the plane. And we were going to have to go to Parliament and get in front of all those dudes with wigs and pay all this money.
Was he a good guy?
Yeah, he was a real good guy, real friendly.
Seemed real kind of charismatic and
he was a little bit aloof or something, but he was. But that was not for real though. He obviously did his homework, and I heard coaches say that he really, really studied film. He was only like 255, 260. So a little bit undersized as a D lineman. And, but he was, a little bit, he was irked that he was traded from Indy. It turned out to be a great trade for him coming here. And he really found, his place here as a 10 sack a year guy for a few years.
He was a difference maker.
He really was. Yeah, it was good. Nice to come out on the right end of a trade. Kelvin Shepard, I think, was the guy he's traded for, who his career didn't amount to a whole lot.
It wasn't Jerry Hughes. All right, no. we got 4 more to go here.
Okay,
and I feel like this is
let's do it.
Probably the Mount Rushmore of the last 40 years of Bill's defensive lineman. I don't know. Maybe, it could be argued. 156 games played. Phil Hansen.
All right. Phil's a good friend of mine. Yeah, I didn't.
We had him on the show.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, kind of an aw shucks kind of guy from North Dakota. Real, he's proud of his kind of small town ways. He was under he had really good numbers, really solid. He totally understood that he was the beneficiary of teams having to game plan against Bruce Smith.
Sure.
But
he made a lot of plays.
He made a lot of plays.
A lot of plays.
Yeah, and he, 10 sacks a year, really, really good against the run. Had one of the real difference makers in the comeback game, the second half.
A pretty amazing career if you think about it. How long he played for one team as a starter.
Was he there your last year?
He was there.
Oh, when you were when you coached.
And he was even further after that.
Really, he was played after.
He had at least a full 10 years as a starter every year on the D line.
Yep, and he's on the Wall of Fame.
Yeah, and he deserves that. I found him a little tough to read.
Yeah,
he was a little sarcastic.
Well, yeah.
But he was so quiet that you kind of didn't know whether he liked you or not.
He was honest, like brutally honest. There was a time, you might remember this. We had a bit of a scandal in our building, and it had to do with computers.
Yes, I do.
If any of my former friends over there, One Bills Drive, either that are there or are listening to this, their mouth, they know exactly what I'm talking about. It ended up being illegal, went to court. He was
not Phil.
Not Phil. So, but it had to do with computers. I had a computer. We were able to purchase. I'm going to say too much. We were able to purchase computers through our computer guy
at a special discounted rate.
Right.
Yes.
But let's just say his accounting was a little sloppy. That's an understatement. And Phil was one of the guys that got a computer. This is just when they were coming out.
Yep.
And he came into my office when all this broke, and he slammed the door, sat down at the desk across from me, pounded his fist on my desk, and I still didn't know why.
Okay. Yeah.
What's going on?
A large man. Very large man.
And he goes, I am so pissed. I'm so mad. I trusted that guy.
Yep.
I am so taken. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't anyone's
fault. Right.
But he just felt like he was stained.
Right. And he didn't even steal
part of it.
And Phil, he
paid.
He didn't even steal from Phil. He stole from the Bills.
Exactly. We all paid.
Right. But we ended up paying him instead of the Bills.
Yeah, exactly. Did you get one too?
Yeah, looking back at it now, I wish you would have gotten 5.
Exactly. Yeah, it wasn't our fault. It was just like, when this thing comes up, your name's going to be on a list. But a lot of people did, and it wasn't their fault.
Phil's mad. An honest, like one of those just honest dudes who would be angry if someone took advantage of him in any single. I could totally see that. 3 to go. An oldie but a goodie here, and a guy who I think it's forgotten. He made one of the biggest plays in Bills history. 162 games played, Fred Smerlas. I know you have a ticket office story, but tell me one of the biggest plays. You were there.
I was there. It was an intern.
You were there. He made one of the most iconic plays in Bills history. People forget about it.
It is, and I didn't see it. Here's why. I was interning in the ticket office, and the game was in late November of '88, and it was anticipated. Had we won, it would have clinched the AFC East for the team. A win without any help did it. So they had a lot of AFC East championship merchandise made. And they were safe to, we still had 4 weeks to play in the season. If it wasn't going to be that game, it was going to be the next game but in anticipation of that, they were asking anyone that didn't have in-game responsibilities, would you want to go out in the parking lots? And we had all these stations set up to sell the merchandise. So when the fans were coming out,
brilliant
euphoria it was. But it was a driving rain. It must have been 35, 38 degrees driving rain. And you're out there, but we made commission. We made 14%.
Oh, how many t-shirts you sell?
Well, I made like $300 in 2 hours in 1988.
Yeah.
And for all I knew, I wasn't ever coming back. I had like a month left with the team. That was a lot of money for a few hours. I mean,
of course it was.
And
that's great.
So, but we were listening on the radio.
Okay.
To try to know when everyone was going to come out. And
for people that don't know, he blocked a kick.
Sorry.
Right. No. I was guilty of it too. He blocked a kick against the Jets. 9-6 win. I have a funny story about that game. So I'm 12 years old, 1988, 12 years old. and we took a Thanksgiving trip. My mom, my dad, and I. My mom and dad did not have a lot of money, but we did a large family trip out to California. We ended up going out there for 10 days. We flew to San Francisco, then ended up in LA. And my dad and I went to Notre Dame versus USC, 1 versus 2.
Awesome.
Tony Rice, Rodney Peete. Notre Dame won the national championship that year. Amazing. The weekend before, we were in San Francisco and we flew out there. And the Bills were playing the Jets. And it was a 4:00 game, if you remember.
Oh, it was dark.
It was dark. But I was in San Francisco, and my mom and dad paid for us to go on a bus tour of San Francisco. Well, I've got one of those little TVs. So it was the national game because it was 4:00.
Yeah.
One of those little TVs, if you remember, with the antenna sticking up from it. My mother was so pissed at me because here I am at 12 years old. Joshua, we spent $15 on this bus tour for you of one of the best cities in America, and you're watching this goddamn football game. And now it's 9-6. It was awful. The game was awful.
Oh, yeah.
It was maddening. It was frustrating.
Yeah.
But I'm glued to my. It was like how people are now with their phones.
Sure.
Back in 1980, it was like a Sony Walkman, little 4-inch TV and I had a headphone in, and I'm yelling and screaming, and nobody knows what the hell I'm doing. Because nobody in San Francisco cared about the Bills and the Jets in November in 1988.
No,
but that's my lasting memory of Fred Smerlas and that game. She was so angry at me that I wasted the money that they had spent on a day in San Francisco, California, to watch. But hey, I had to watch
terrible timing.
Well, not really.
It was
at least they won. At least they won.
Yeah,
my dad understood. My mom.
Okay.
My mom wasn't so happy.
That's funny.
2 to go here.
Quick Fred Smerla story. When I worked in the ticket office, there was a wall, and there was a window, a lobby, then a window, bulletproof glass, small thing underneath it, then a work area, and then a wall. So we were all working behind a wall. Well, the players came in a lot. Fred Smerla did this joke to the ladies. It was Karen Renzi who was on, and Sharon Hart. We were both on. We were talking about ticket-related matters last year, and he did this thing where he would come in the door, and whoever was in the front, he'd go like this, and he would sneak in, and then he would come around the wall, and just behind either Sharon, who was on one side, or Karen, their desks were there, just behind their peripheral, would get really, really close to them, like this close. Now we could all see it, like the people, we were looking at it, and we had to be straight faced, like we didn't see it. And they were clueless. And when they finally turned, he was right there. They would scream bloody murder. And he must have done it a dozen times to each of them. And he just thought it was the funniest thing.
Was he a big deal?
Yeah. Yeah. He was a character, and he was Greek, big, like family loving guy, just real outgoing.
I guess I was so young that, by the time I started following the team, he was kind of on the tail end.
Yeah, he missed the Super Bowl years. That was it. But he had a huge personality, real thick Boston accent.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it was great. I feel sorry. I'm sorry he never, just timing his age wasn't.
He might have made a play on like the Doctor of Seth.
Right. Yeah.
2 to go here. 188 games played. A huge fan favorite, Kyle Williams.
Oh, Kyle. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hard to believe we've gotten this. Yeah, it makes sense. 188 games. I didn't realize. Yeah, boy, he's a guy. I actually told him, if I had, a guy take from this era to put on the Super Bowl teams, no offense to Jeff Wright, what he did with, Marino and everything, but he was just a super strong guy, a little undersized height wise. He was kind of intense. And like he was a real team leader, man. He was a perfect player for that position, a coach's dream.
Was he like the most respected guy in the locker room?
Yeah, I would say so. I'd say Eric Wood on the offensive side rivaled Kyle probably to the defense for sure, maybe even to the whole team, was the perfect leader. He would, after a loss, he would be the first guy to go in the camera, say we have to play better. But you would hear guys in the other, offensive line and other teams just say he was a nightmare to block. He was just so strong. I remember we were playing a game, I think it was in Miami, and he was sick. He didn't practice all week. Guys are like, he's going to come, but he's probably not going to play. We get off the bus to go to pick up the keys that the advanced guy had left for everybody. And Kyle could barely move. And I kind of hung back with him. I just want to make sure everyone got their keys. So literally, I'm kind of walking with him. Didn't know what to say because you could tell he was sick. And we get to the counter, and there's a lady there from the hotel. Hey, Mr. Slowpoke, what are you doing? I'm like, no, don't do that. And he just couldn't even and picked up his keys. And the next day, he just had a tremendous game.
Yeah, and I mean
in the heat.
And the guys all know you're sick.
Yeah, and whatever the strength guys did, I'm sure. I can't imagine how many Gatorades and probably IVs he had before that to get him to that point. But man, what in 24 hours was amazing.
All right, here's the big question.
Yeah,
there's that famous video of Kyle Williams in the locker room when Tyler Boyd is running down the field, scoring a touchdown for Cincinnati. Yeah, good. You already know where I'm going here. Good. Okay, so
good for you guys.
Yes. So
yeah, I was happy for him.
Okay, that's where we were going here.
Sure.
Did you? Okay. Did it take your anger from a 10 to a 9 at least for guys like Kyle when they made the playoffs?
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
It was the year I was.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I was fired.
You had to at least have been happy for him.
I was.
Sure.
It's a matter of trying to compartmentalize and
rationalize,
seeing him,
justify.
seeing him and Eric Wood, and that literally like. Good for you guys. Yeah, yes, absolutely.
It's a great video of him with his kid.
Yeah.
He's picking up his kid, and he's like with McDermott.
Yeah.
And I mean, for you.
Of course, I would have wanted to be there.
Sure.
I can't, of course. And it was like, seriously, but yes, that you framed it pretty well. Yeah.
That was a great look. I appreciate that you knew where I was going there. And yeah. Okay. So obviously, number one on our list from Bruce to Vaughn. We're not going to talk about Vaughn because you weren't there with Vaughn.
Right.
And then there's been some guys since, Greg Rousseau, who's a breakout guy, and I think is gonna have a big time career.
Yeah.
AJ Epinesa. There's a bunch of guys now that unfortunately you just weren't there, to know.
Right.
Tell me about Bruce, and then I'll tell you about Bruce.
I was gonna say you're wearing his jersey.
I am. This is from my late father-in-law, Bob. Who that was his favorite player. I wear it in honor of Bob and his love of Bruce Smith. So anybody who knows me knows that I have a story about Bruce Smith that I tell people off the air.
Okay.
See,
all right.
I'm gonna just very, very gently say that seeing Bruce Smith in a locker room is a life-changing event. And famously, he has one of the most watched videos on YouTube. Because when he went on Family Feud, I encourage anyone to Google Bruce Smith Family Feud. Yes, he mentions his life-changing appendage in an answer during the bonus round. He's a very physically gifted man. Take it away, Don.
All right. Well, I was gonna say,
it's just one of those things. As a kid, you're walking through the Bills locker room. You're seeing your childhood heroes, Thurman and Andre, and then Bruce comes out of the shower, and Bruce had no problem just being naked and doing his thing and showing everybody his physique. Let's just we'll leave it there. But it's still with me 25 years later.
Apparently so. Oh, well, you quite a tap dance. The Family Feud, huh? Okay,
yeah.
I'll have to check that one out.
We're gonna watch it as soon as this is over.
Okay.
You're gonna laugh.
All right.
What can you share?
Well, I mean, the greatest ever, right? Our first cat was named Bruce, but Amy called him Brucey.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's famously can be difficult to deal with. What were your interactions with him always pleasant?
Mine were fine. My first year in the ticket office before I was up in the administration, and then we'd give tickets. He always wanted the best tickets. Always wanted them right behind the bench for his family. And he hated doing autographs.
Oh yeah.
He thought everyone had an angle that they were trying to make money off the signature. So he was real stingy.
Yes.
With the signature.
Even with his teammmates.
Yeah, I heard you shared a story about that. I was surprised. I didn't realize it went to that extent.
Yeah, he hated autographs.
Yeah. Even when a teammate would say, like, do this for charity.
Yeah, he didn't do it.
Oh, yeah. Or he did it grudgingly. But in case you told me, I couldn't believe it.
Do you remember when they got released? When he and Thurman and Andre got released? Like, how long did it take before like he came around again? Do you remember? Was it years? Was he bitter?
Well, he played in
He played in
Washington
but
for another 4 or 5 years.
yeah,
right?
but like, did it take a
Yeah.
while for him to come back into like the Bills fold as an alumni?
I don't know exactly when he came back, but when he came back, I remember being pleasantly surprised that he came back and, didn't seem to hold any hard feelings. Maybe his agent did a really good job of explaining, where the Bills were at that point in terms of, look, they have no cap room. And it's just going to be impossible to pay you what you deserve to be paid. You're going to have to go elsewhere. Let's do it right.
So
don't hold it against the team.
Okay, so that's good. Then
yeah.
it obviously when you get released, Thurman went to the Dolphins. We all know that it was terrible.
Yeah.
But then over the years, all these guys have been kind of brought back into the fold.
Yeah.
You wouldn't sit those guys in the corner of a suite under the overhang like maybe some certain linebackers did this week.
Yeah.
But so Bruce is now beloved in the community.
Oh yeah.
And rightfully seen as one of the best players in NFL history.
Yeah, I loved we do a thumbnail for well, I mean, our staff does a thumbnail. Yeah. But looking up pictures, and you saw him with Von Miller, and he has a golf tournament here.
He gave before the home opener last year against Tennessee. He was on the field with the families of the East Side top shooting victims.
Man, really?
And he gave a really moving speech before that. And I thought to myself, good for him. Like, he had his ups and downs here. Clearly he was the best player on the team for a long time, but he was kind of a pain in the ass. But
is he the best player of all time for the Bills?
Yes,
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even necessarily think it's all that close.
Yeah.
Like he's a top 3 or 4 defensive player in league history.
He is the league all-time sack leader.
It's probably Lawrence Taylor and him. And I mean,
yeah.
you can make an argument, but
Reggie White, yeah.
He's the best. He's the best. He's not my favorite Bill of all time, but he's the best. To me, he's the best Bill of all time.
Yeah, I don't think it's even debatable, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well done.
70 minutes of defensive linemen, and hopefully people enjoyed it.
Let's put a feeler out there to what our next position should be.
Yeah. If anybody has a comment or a suggestion, we can do corners. We still have special teams guys to do. We got linebackers.
Yep.
Really encourage everybody to like and to subscribe to our channel on the YouTube. It really helps the algorithm. The Cover One pass is something that I know the Cover One guys are really proud of. And it's pretty interesting to see the insider community that they've built and all the inside information. Marlon and I are going to do I think we're going to be on the Slack channel on Saturday night for Notre Dame, Ohio State. I'm going to have to watch my language. Thankfully, I'll only be texting and not talking because I don't know.
You're going to be live watching the game
on the Slack channel, not on video.
Okay.
Just with the guys, on the one pass, the insiders.
Is it recorded?
No, it's by text.
Okay.
It's like
Sorry.
I know better than to get on camera for Notre Dame, Ohio State. No.
Right.
No. Yeah. I know better. Marlon,
I know what you're talking about.
I would. No. We're gonna root on Notre Dame. They're gonna win by 7.
All right.
And
then go celebrate our friends at Queen City Wines and Liquor. Hit them up for
sure. We got some big stuff coming up with them planned.
Yep.
So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Good stuff.